We move over to the hate list here, guys. And back-to-back weeks, Jeudy, who might have got you to the playoffs once upon a time, but he makes the hate list again. Forget the fact that season-low 10% target share last week, Matthew. This isn't a functioning passing offense with the young quarterback and DTR under center. He had 42 dropbacks, but just 157 passing yards, 2 picks, no touchdowns. It's got to be hard to trust really any wide receiver in this offense right now.
Yeah, look, we've talked about this a lot. We talked about this last week about why Jeudy was on the hate list last week, as was Elijah Moore. And it got proven out this past week with DTR under center. Look, he's had 4 career starts, DTR has, right? And only once in those 4 starts has a wide receiver caught more than 4 passes or scored double-digit fantasy points. And the one that did was Elijah Moore, who scored 12. So not even Jeudy. It's the championship week. You don't want to get cute. I get it. He got you here, but I cannot imagine anything you saw last week from Jeudy or DTR gives you confidence to play him against Miami this week, who's been a better defense as of late. And obviously the Dolphins playing hard to try to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Lawrence, you sitting Jeudy in this spot?
Sitting?
Yeah.
If
Benching,
I'm in a redraft
dropping,
and I need a roster spot, I'm dropping Jeudy if I know that DTR is starting. He's up to, he has 1 touchdown pass in his career, 9 interceptions after week 16. You can't play no wide receiver like I would, like if he had a receiver like CeeDee Lamb, I would be starting him, but man, would I be hating it. I would be hating that. To go, like, Jeudy just had his worst game in his last 8 games. That's the last time he went under 20 receiving yards. And during that time, that's before Jeudy was what he eventually became, but with Jameis Winston. That's the key here is Jameis Winston. So if it's DTR and you need a roster spot to pick up a defense or something like that, it don't have to be nothing major. I would drop Jeudy because if it's redraft, this the last week. You don't need him anymore.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, guys. Our next one, Calvin Ridley. He's also dealing with some quarterback issues. Over the past 4 weeks, Jacksonville's actually been okay against wide receivers. They're allowing the 7th fewest points per game to wide receivers. Some of that might be getting teams out of throw script. But Matthew, on top of that, Ridley just hasn't had any consistency under center, and that's led to very, very few red zone action as well.
He's been under 20% in terms of target share in 3 of the last 4 weeks. So you're right? Target share just really hasn't been there for Calvin Ridley. 14% target share the last 2 weeks, under 20%, as I said, in 3 of the last 4. And then you mentioned the scoring opportunities or the lack thereof, Connor. This entire year, Calvin Ridley has 3 end zone targets. 3. The entire season. There are 80 different wide receivers that have more end zone targets, 80, than Calvin Ridley. He's tied for 81st with 3 end zone targets. That's just, again, it just doesn't give you any sort of confidence getting in a fantasy finals to start Calvin Ridley unless you have to. He's a very shaky wide receiver 3 for me. I'm at wide receiver 29 this week.
In more of the Jacksonville's recent games, you said it, Connor. They've been good against receivers lately. The only guy recently who really had a good game against them was Devontae Adams. So, like you said, the quarterback shuffling is getting out of hand. There's really no consistency. He's had success with Mason Rudolph, and he's had success with Will Levis fantasy wise, but he's also put up horrendous duds with both of those quarterbacks too. So now you feel a hell of a lot better with him than you do Jeudy. Let's put that out there. But still, it's not something you love going into the championship week if you have to roll with him in your lineup.
Our last pass catcher here, guys, Jameson Williams. Now, Lawrence, you were early on his breakout and all over it. He's been really, really good down this stretch. The only problem in this scenario, Lawrence, is that he's got the Niners. They've been the best against wide receivers this season in fantasy.
Yeah, look, he's not a guy who gets a lot of targets out of the slot. That's reserved for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's what separates him from like really taking that next step. Now you look at it from the fact that the San Francisco 49ers have allowed the fewest receptions and yards on deep passes. What did we just see Jameson Williams do last week against the Bears? He caught a deep ball touchdown. So that part of the game may be limited. The Lions may look elsewhere to get their production, and we know the Lions can do that. They could do it through the run game. They could do it through the short passing game. They could do it in the play action passing game. So I wouldn't be as high as I usually am on Jameson Williams. And plus, they're on the road. He does better when they in that dome in Detroit.
Now, Matthew, you have him wide receiver 27, so he's in playable territory. It's just a little bit scarier and riskier this week.
For sure. I mean, listen, it's one of the highest over-unders on the slate. So, because we expect San Francisco to move the ball, given how bad the Lions defense has been recently. They're so beat up. So we think San Francisco will move the ball, which means Detroit's going to have to move the ball. And like their offense is playing at a super high level. The concern, again, is the just matchup against the Niners, right? No team gives up less yards per game to perimeter wide receivers, which is where Williams obviously lines up. They've actually also allowed the fewest receptions and yards on deep passes. It's hard to beat them deep. So it just feels like on the road at San Francisco, the way Detroit tries to move the ball is running the ball with Gibbs, obviously, and just, Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown in the middle of the field. They'll take their shots with Williams, but I don't know. It's just risky. I feel like you're going to need to hit on one big one if you start Williams. I'm as a shaky wide receiver 3, as you mentioned, Connor, wide receiver 27 for me this week after the 4 teams from Wednesday have been removed.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.